turned on. Okay. Very good. Yeah, look at the crowd here, man. Okay. All right. We're going to get started here. We're going to get started. All right. Hello, everyone out there watching Amateur Radio Roundtable today. Today is July the 7th, 2015. From you guys that were watching us last week, you know, we had a lot of problems last week. The internet was down at about 1,000 locations across the United States, and that really affected us. But we think we've got it working tonight, and we're going to give it a try. We got Clint back with us tonight. We've got our co-host Ted Randall with us tonight. I'm Tom Medlin, W5KUB. Ted Randall, WB8PUM, is with us. And Ted, go ahead and say hello to the guys. I just want to see that your audio is working.
Well, my audio is definitely working, but I'm trying to figure out where you're at. That's definitely not part of your den or your bedroom at the house there. So
we moved upstairs and I knocked a couple extra windows out. But that's our new studio after the disaster we had last week, boy. We just had to rebuild everything there. But anyway, let's. I tell you what. Didn't talk too much about field day last week, but I think we ran a video of showing us make some calls. You got any quick comments about a field day?
Well, let's just say this: of all the folks that were calling in and everything we were doing, I think it was a good thing. It was a big success, I think, from the field day live part of it. And I guess the thing that, why do we do this? Why in the world would we go on an international shortwave station and broadcast people calling in for field day? And that's just simply to promote amateur radio, not necessarily to promote field day itself, because I think that there's a lot of people listening all over the world that would be intrigued by the way amateur radio works. And I think that's there's a lot to be said about that. Field day is kind of it's supposed to be an emergency exercise, but it's also very much fun. And I think that's the thing that came across with people calling in, is they were having fun participating in field day, not necessarily going by the book or rules or whatever. They were having fun. They'd all start talking about what they were having for dinner and what was the chef was cooking and all that kind of thing. And I think that in itself really makes it. And I think the whole thing is everybody that called in and starts talking about that city that they're in, starts talking about their particular club or organization, that registers with folks who are listening. And I think that a lot of hams that maybe, I should say shortwave listeners that are would-be hams sitting on the fence thinking, should I really get into this? Or I think that it's broadcasts like that to kind of push them over the edge, that makes them say, hey, because we go, I don't know if you have the same thing as I have, but when we're at Dayton, when we're at Huntsville, these people constantly coming up saying, hey, I got my ham ticket because of the QSO radio show. We've been listening and whatnot. And it's to me, that's a real satisfying thing to have people come up and say, I joined the hobby because of you lunatics.
Well, it's it's
crazy people made me do it.
It's a great hobby, and I tell you, we're going to get into a really fun part of it here in a little while. And I just want to say, back last week when we were with you at Field Day, we went over and visited in Ted's studio there, and he gave us a pair of headphones and gave us a mic, and we got to say hello to some of the callers, and we just had a great time over there at Ted's studio. Ted, we thank you for inviting us over there. Hey, and let's introduce David back there, KG4WXW. I think I got that right. David is the man that is hooking all the wires together back there and making this thing work on that end. So we're glad to have David with us back there, and hopefully we'll have more for him to do on the show here soon. So Ted, last week, go ahead, Ted.
He likes to sit in the background, and I keep telling him he needs to get set over here where I'm at, so he can get on the camera up real close and everything. But he seems to like to hide in the corner. I don't know. Yeah. It might be because he's up to something. I don't know.
Well, we're gonna have to, at least that shyness he's got. I know he's a little shy, but we're going to get him on camera here. Maybe we'll give him a segment. Let's give him a 30-minute segment each Tuesday night.
There you go. That'll work.
All right. Hey, one of the things I want to talk about tonight is going to be, of course, about working satellites, and I think we'll touch on the International Space Station and so forth. And what we'll do here in a minute. We're going to bring our guest in just a minute, but I had an email from last week. I did make an announcement on the webcast last week that the International Space Station was going over the next morning at 10:46 a.m. I told them to put their radios on 145.80, and a father sent me an email and said that he told his son about it, and his son set his radio up, and his son called him at work that morning so excited. He heard the International Space Station, and I think that gave him that extra itch, to get on ham radio. So it gave him something to do there, and another mode and something that might be a little exciting there. So I've got a quick little video here I want to run tonight. It's about a 2-minute video. It's real short. I think the audio's okay, and we're going to run this, and it kind of is an intro to our show tonight. So let me run it, and then we'll be back with our guests. So here we go.
A Memphis amateur radio operator has been talking with a man who is out of this world.
It's a remarkable story. He's talking to astronauts on the International Space Station as it orbits the Earth. Action News 5's Ben Watson.
No audio.
Story.
Well, you're not.
VK2 APG, Stroke Whiskey 7, from an upstairs room at his home in Cordoba. Amateur radio operator Tom Medlin talks with people around the world. But so far, his greatest accomplishment has been the recent communications he established with the International Space Station orbiting Earth and the ship's commander, Douglas Wheelock.
65 Kilo Uniform Bravo. We get your line clear aboard the space station. November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra.
I remember my first contact when I did it. It was like, wow, this is great. I talked to the commander of the International Space Station.
In the past several weeks, Medlin, head of International Telecommunications for FedEx Latin American Division, has talked with Commander Wheelock 27 times. They've discussed everything from weightlessness to the beautiful view from space.
That's the Straits of Gibraltar right here.
During one of the conversations, they got to talking about Memphis. Then the subject turned to Memphis barbecue. Medlin played that part of the conversation on these speakers. I'm ready for it. Ready for it. Is it Corky's up there? Medlin says he hopes to meet the commander someday. Meanwhile, he's already making plans to FedEx some Corky's barbecue to the Space Center in Houston and have it arrive just in time for the commander's return to Earth November 30th. Ben Watson, Action News 5.
That's pretty great right there. Corky's just got a cool ride all the way from space.
Anyone that says Whiskey 5 Kilo Uniform Bravo.
Whiskey 5 Kilo Uniform Bravo. We got you loud and clear aboard the space station. November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra.
Okay, Colonel, thank you very much. I know you're coming down soon. I'd like to FedEx you some famous Memphis barbecue if you'll take it over.
Well, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. Is it I can't remember the name. Is it Corky's up there?
Yes, sir. It'll be Corky's. I'll FedEx some down to you down in Houston if you guys can accept it.
Absolutely, absolutely. That'd be great to have waiting for me in the crew quarters once we come into quarantine after landing.
Okay, so just wanted to share that with you. I know probably many of you have seen or heard that before. It's up on our YouTube channel, but you heard how clear astronaut Wheelock was coming in from the space station. And we might get into a little bit of differences between satellite and space station in a minute with Clint. You know, the space station is a lot closer, plus the space station is running a whole lot more power. So the context with the space station can be very, very clear. So we're going to get into all that in just a minute. Let me go ahead and announce our next guest here and bring him in. Tonight we have with us Clint Bradford, K6LCS. Let me see if I can bring him in on Skype. There we go. I think we've got him in there. Okay, and so this is Clint. You guys are looking at Clint Bradford, K6LCS. Clint lives in Southern California, and by the last count, he has given his How to Work Amateur Radio Satellites with Your HT presentation about 80 times at conventions and clubs across the United States. Clint has also coordinated a school contact with the International Space Station, enabling students to interview an astronaut as the International Space Station streaked overhead. He has a website out there. It's called work-sat. That's work with a hyphen, sat.com, or you can find his material at k6lcs.com too. So Clint, tell us, how did you get involved in all of this?
Well, thank you, Tom. First of all, I shouldn't be using this microphone. This is a new Heil microphone. It's the PR 999. I see you already have a slide up there, but yeah, I shouldn't be using this. This is proprietary and an exclusive to W5KUB this evening. So you'll learn about this one later.
The microphone on camera looks about as big as your head, so that's some mic here.
And I have been told I have a big microphone. But anyway,
all right, go right ahead.
How did I get started in all this? Goodness, it was about 10 years ago, Tom. I saw a AMSAT table at a Hamfest, and I just walked on by thinking 100 watts of power needed, dual Yagis on the roof, which is a valid cause for divorce in California, and that expensive Yaesu rotator. When I learned a little bit later that we could work a couple FM satellites that were orbiting the Earth with a watt or two and just a little improved antenna, oh, that's been my mantra for the last 10 years. Work it with the equipment you already have, then graduate to the more esoteric birds. That's my QSL card. If you, for those who are listening shortwave, I apologize, but there's a gentleman on the right-hand side. He has an alcoholic beverage in his hand. This was at the LA County Fairgrounds a few years ago, and that gentleman was so inebriated he was looking for the little people in my HT that were talking to us from satellite AO51 back then. That was a pass, maybe 20, 30 degrees elevation that we worked 3 continents. I didn't say cities. I didn't say countries. We worked British Columbia, the U.S., and Mexico with 2 watts and a handheld antenna. So, and I'm still finding audiences that don't realize they can work these simple FM birds with minimal equipment. Could you put up slide 2 for me, will you please? There's Gordo and I working the Torrance, California Hamfest several years ago up on a parking lot roof. But again, just minimal equipment and knowing where the birds are.
Okay, well, in that picture, all you're using is just a small handheld radio and a little handheld beam antenna. Tell our viewers out there how effective that is. We've got a lot of people, I think, are interested in wanting to work satellite, and they think probably it's going to be very expensive and difficult.
Well, slip up the next slide number 3. When you think about it, working satellites is probably the ultimate example of the concept of line of sight for 2-meter and 440 work. We all learned while studying for our tech license that such VHF and UH communications were line of sight. So essentially, if you can see the other station, you're probably going to hit it. Not literally see, of course, but at least line of sight, unobstructed by mountains and tall buildings and uneven terrain. This photo, I'm sorry you folks can't see it, but this photo is me working Commander Weissman, who was aboard the International Space Station at that time, field day last year, field day 2014. I'm using a handheld radio turned down to 2 watts. Yes, 2 watts. I mean, why use more power when you don't need it? And a homemade $15 tape measure beam. And yes, the ISS will send you a QSL card for those contacts. The instructions are all over the web at ariss.org. So the ISS is about 250 miles up. The low Earth orbiting satellites so that we can work upwards of 500 miles away. So you do need to improve your stock antenna that ships with our handheld radios. Most of those stock rubber ducks are tested at -4, -6 dB gain. And with the amateur satellites transmitting only a quarter or a watt or so, you really need to improve your antenna, both for reception and for transmission. And if you aren't one to build your own antenna, there are commercial handheld units available also.
Well, and while we're at this point, I'm just going to pick up mine real quick and show them that even I can build one. Look at this. There you go. There's the tape measure.
Looks like a Stanley.
Yeah, there's a tape I was talking about, and I got it crisscrossed with UHF, and those are aluminum welding rods. So, Clint, let me put that out of the way there. And
now, please, though, if you travel with one of those, please give yourself plenty of extra time at the airport, because if you carry one of those with you, it is a guaranteed cavity search.
Oh, yeah, it would be. Tell us about the approximate price for commercial antennas, and then talk to us about the cost of like a homemade antenna like you showed in your picture and I just held up.
There are two, quote, classic handheld beams or handheld antennas, the ELK, log periodic, or the Arrow satellite antenna. Either cost about $125. But again, you can get into the world of high gain with a lot less than that. On my website, there's plans for making that tape measure beam. There's plans for making a doable antenna out of that old broken umbrella that's in your closet. And there's even a video on my site of a scout troop with completely scrap parts. The elements were made out of barbed wire, successfully working the ISS a couple of years ago. So you don't need to spend $125 to get into the world of high gain.
Well, I tell you, especially if you were out in the country, you could probably find some barbed wire somewhere. And like you said, I mean, you can build this antenna with just about anything. I mean, I've heard of people using clothes hangers and cutting the elements out of clothes hangers and putting them through a wooden broom handle, and that's all you need to make that beam right there. So you saw the one I made, and you know those antennas have been used a lot by fox hunters, where they hide a transmitter somewhere, and people go around looking with little tape measure antennas, and they compete with each other to see who can locate it first. But we'll talk about that in another show. What type of radio do you need, Clint, to work the FM satellites? They're probably the easiest, aren't they?
There's a lot of different satellites out there. I'm just still finding audiences who want to work or who don't know they can work the simple FM birds. So we're not going to talk about AO7 tonight or AO29 or even receiving AO73. But the easy to work FM satellites like SO50, like the upcoming Fox 1A project from AMSAT North America, and something exciting that just occurred this week. The control operators of AO27, this is a chart of the frequencies, the control operators of AO27, which has been down since the first quarter of 2013, have re-established contact with it. So, of course, you know me, I have not deleted those memories out of my handhelds, but AO27 just might be back up for us in a couple weeks in FM voice mode. But anyway, there are SSB birds, others up there, and you'll have guests from AMSAT North America who will be describing them in upcoming shows. For those just beginning working the birds, we're in a mode termed VU, where your uplink is on 2 meter and the downlink is 440, or with a new Fox project, just the opposite. It's going to be reception on 2 meter and transmit on the 440, and that, for us working satellites portable, is going to give us about a 6 dB increase in receive signal. That's going to be very, very exciting. Expect the Fox 1A project from AMSAT hopefully to be launched in September on a secret military launch from Vandenberg. They tell us tentative dates. They don't tell us the time because there is a military payload involved. But it's going to be easier to work than our SO50 right now. So what's the easiest, what's the best radio to get? There's only one currently manufactured radio that does the true full duplex really, really well. And we should be working these birds in true full duplex, where you can actually hear the downlink from the satellite with an earpiece as you simultaneously key your mic. That way you know you're hitting the bird effectively, and also that you're not stepping on someone else. You can accomplish that by using a second radio as a receiver or a scanner. because that Kenwood THD-72A is a great rig, does UHF, VHF modes well for us. It's got GPS and APRS and all sorts of stuff in it, but it's about $450. Well worth it for the technology that's in it, but for all my demos, I've been using a non-full duplex radio. Work full duplex is preferred. Please, if you learn anything from this, working true full duplex is preferred, but it is not absolutely mandatory. Think of it like working your local repeater system. You don't intentionally step on someone else's conversation. You wait for a break in the action, then key your mic and announce yourself. It can be the same with the FM birds, except if it's a scouting event or field day or busy Saturdays in the afternoon. It gets pile-ups galore. My favorite little handheld, it's still the FT60R. No, I don't take out my Kenwood to demos, and nor is it a true full duplex radio, but you can program split frequencies in one memory. You can transmit on one band, receive on the other. We have radios that cost more, but remember where I'm coming from. Ease of use and not laying out a fortune in equipment. The FT60R debuted in Dayton 11 years ago. Remains one of the best bargains in a solid 2-meter 440 handheld. But to truly work full duplex, use a second radio or grab a T72A. It's possible that the less expensive Chinese models, the Baofengs, the Wushans that are coming, might work in VU mode. We know they don't work well with desense problems in UV mode. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, well, I think you're telling the preferred way. Let me throw in just a little experience of mine right now. First, as you know, if you're on the receiving end up in the space station or through a satellite, you're gonna have 1 million people calling at one time, and you don't know who's calling, but there's gonna be a lot of people calling. I think there are a lot of people out there that don't have the full duplex radios. It's not required. I've made many satellite contacts without a full duplex radio. And, your transmissions are fairly short, and I know we'll get into that in just a few minutes. But again, it's not to say that you can't use a handy-talkie for the receive, and you can use a mobile rig for the transmit. You can mix things up like that and match them. Use 2 different radios, 2 different mobile rigs, a mobile rig and an HT, and so forth. So there's a lot of ways to do it with the equipment. I think the takeaway tonight was your message is you could probably work these satellites with something you already have. You don't necessarily need to upgrade to the biggest and the best. Let's talk about Doppler shift. That's something that is interesting, and you need to correct for it. It's not majorly complicated, but talk to us about Doppler shift.
Doppler shift for us working the 440 side especially. Can you slap up slide number 4 there? For those who can't see that, that's just simply a chart showing that on a decent pass of a FM bird, there could be as much as plus and minus 20 kilohertz deviation in that 440 signal. So for receiving or for the new Fox project, when you're transmitting on 440, you're going to have to accommodate a little bit for Doppler on the 440 side. For those of us working handheld and not necessarily working horizon to horizon, but working 5 or 10 degrees off the horizon and above, you don't need to accommodate for 440 on the 2-meter side. You can see in that sample, there's only a 6 kilohertz deviance in the plus or minus 3 on the 2-meter side, so especially on the 440 side. Tom, you mentioned a mobile rig for transmit. Turn that mobile rig down, and again, we're talking some gain. So vertical on the car is not necessarily going to do well unless you tilt it to about the same. I call it get perpendicular. I used to have a bumper sticker that said get perpendicular. You want to get the antenna perpendicular to the orbit of the bird. So a straight vertical and 100 watts on the top of the roof is not necessarily as efficient as 1 or 2 watts and a directional antenna.
Yeah, when I worked the Commander Space Station 27, 30 times, 3 times I worked mobile while I was driving home from work. And I think I even got to a point where I tied a string out there on my antenna and I brought it in the window. And I could actually, if I was driving the right direction, I could pull on that string and I could bend that antenna back like at a 45-degree angle, which gave me that radiated angle I needed up, for the pass over me.
That's classic. Flip slide number 5 will show you the Doppler correction. I'm sorry, folks listening on shortwave can't see this, but instead of just programming the center frequency, the transmit and receive frequency, look how you program for the birds you're receiving on UHF. You program a few steps above. So say the bird is transmitting on 436.795. Also program 436.780. Excuse me, 795, and then 800, 805, and 810. And acquire that bird, the bird that's transmitting on UHF, acquire it slightly above the center frequency, and work your way through those frequencies. The transmit frequency, as you can see there for SO50, remains the same because you don't really need to accommodate for Doppler on the 2-meter side. And on SO50, don't forget that it requires a 67.0 tone on transmit only, receive open. And flip to slide number 6. Fox 1A from AMSAT North America. Hopefully we'll see this one this fall. Just the opposite. Notice the transmit frequency is on the 440 side. So you're going to have to, although it has an automatic frequency control in its circuitry, we're going to have to, instead of slightly above the center frequency, you're going to acquire it. Say it's transmitting at 435, 180. Also program 175 and 170 and flip between those memories as you acquire it, work it in the middle, and as you lose it, go slightly above the frequency. So it's just exactly opposite of acquire above. You're going to acquire below on the Fox projects.
Let me ask a quick question right there. The Fox 1, the input and outputs are going to be reverse what's normally there, right? So you're going to be coming down on 2 meters and up on 440?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that, for us, working portable is going to be marvelous. It's going to give us at least a 6 dB increase in receive signal. That's going to make this all the much easier for us to work with minimal equipment.
Now, there's not as much Doppler shift that you have to compensate for coming down, is there?
The AMSAT folks, the engineers next week or in 2 weeks will tell you more about it, but there is an AFC circuitry built into the satellite that's going to help us. But still, we've been told by AMSAT to acquire it slightly below. It's transmitting on 435.180, and they want us to start monitoring for it at 175 and 170 and start working it there when it's right overhead or at its greatest height or altitude for you. Go ahead and work at 435, 180, and as it descends, go up to 185 and 190. So it's a little bit more finesse than the good old AO51 we had, but it's going to be a very, very exciting bird with that 2 meter downlink.
Okay. Well, all the different satellites there, they've got different frequencies, and sometimes it might be a little confusing on how to know what to go up on, what to come down on, which bird, and so forth. So what can you tell us about how to find these frequencies?
Tom, I was looking 10 years ago, looking for the same stuff on the internet, and there was a lot of discrepancies, to be mild. As recently as last field day, people were trying to work AO51 because of information they found on the internet. The internet can be a wonderful thing, but when it has information saying that AO51 is working when it's been dead for a couple of years, that's why I created my website. The easy to work birds, I have a page called SatSkeds, and there are links to the control operators of the birds. I feel there's no better source for information than those who are controlling the birds. I mean, otherwise there's intermediaries and updating required. So that's why I created that website. So someone who wants to get into it can find information on SO50, the ISS, a couple of the other birds that are coming up immediately. It just irritates me still seeing people last field day trying to work birds that have been down for years. For unexpected changes like AO73, the AMSAT Europe's bird, there's a little Yahoo group that I've created also for visitors. There you'll see when the ISS might be transmitting down some of those wonderful images, slow scan TV images that the Russians did a couple months ago. That's a whole different thing. I had no idea another aspect of this hobby would excite me as much as being able to hold my FT60 up, my antenna, my handheld antenna, and hold an Apple iOS app and decode beautiful images coming from the ISS. Of course, they were using the Ericsson radio at 20 or 25 watts, so we were hearing it from a degree or two altitude. But if you want to get a slow scan TV from the ISS, there's information on the website also for that. Very exciting aspect of amateur radio that I never delved into until the Russians turned me on to it from the ISS a couple months ago.
Okay, well, you've already mentioned a lot of things that we have to do. You mentioned, I think, satellite tracking data. Okay, so we've talked about how we can improve our antenna system. You can have two radios, a mobile or and a handheld, or two handhelds or whatever, as long as we operate in a split frequency mode. But tell us what a person can use so they will know when and where the satellites will be.
There are several programs, from freeware to shareware to commercial, that'll give you accurate satellite orbit data, and there's some free online sites also. Can you throw up slide 7? There's a screenshot of my favorite program. I've been using it since my Palm PDA days. And if you're still using a Palm PDA, that's called PocketSat. There's also a version for the iPod Touch, Apple iPhone, and Android devices. And that's a screenshot of a pass using PocketSat. Don't write down these citations. They're all on the website for you. If you're an Android person, there's HamSat Droid, which is free and works marvelously. If you're still using BlackBerry, SatMe, S-A-T-M-E, works on many BlackBerry models. And then there's the big guns. Can you throw up slide number 8 for us? Mac Doppler Pro, the big guns in the satellite world. Nova for Windows, Mac Doppler Pro, and Sat PC32. And if you purchase those through the AMSAT North America website, same price, but AMSAT benefits from your purchase of either Sat PC32 or Mac Doppler for your Mac, or Nova for Windows. Those are just the ultimate in ease. They also will control your rotator and give you your accurate data. But there's free stuff on the web too. But right now, a plug for AMSAT North America and AMSAT UK is in order. Both organizations are worth joining. AMSAT North America's website is simply amsat.org, amsat.org. AMSAT UK site is amsat-uk.org. So all these programs can be set up with the current tracking data from reliable sources, and that data set is called Keplerian data. Can you throw slide 9 up there really quickly? It's a boring slide. There's Mr. Kepler himself, but just think of Keplerian data as a mathematical statement of the orbit of a given satellite. And all these modern programs will import this data for you automatically and do it for you. And then we have 3 great resources that are absolutely free online to use. And if slide number 10 we can throw up there. Heavensabove.com, that's heavens-above.com, amsat.org, our own AMSAT here in North America, and n2yo.com. These will give you wonderful graphic representations of your chosen satellite pass. You punch in your grid square or your longitude latitude, and they will give you wonderful graphic representations of the satellites you want to look at. Let's throw up slide 11, because AMSAT's data is a little different. For those of you who can't see this, you're fortunate, because this is I asked for passes of the next 20 passes of SO50, and all the AMSAT.org site gives you is all these numbers. It looks like gibberish, but let's go to the next slide, because you look for altitude, and the one that has the arrow on it back on that previous slide said 59 degrees altitude or elevation. That's an exciting pass. Let's look more closely at that. So there it is, and here's how you can decode that chart of nonsense numbers. But there's the maximum elevation, the 59 degrees right there in the middle. There's the start time. And please, when you use the AMSAT data, please don't forget to back out for Greenwich Mean Time or UTC time. Their data is in UTC time, and I don't mind getting phone calls, but when they are 2 or 3 in the morning, when the pass was 7 hours ago, that has irritated my spouse a few times. But anyway, so back out for the 7 hours for me, however many hours for you for UTC time. So this pass, nice elevation, it begins at 5:59 p.m. my time. And you can see that it's rising from the south. AOS means acquisition of signal. And at 196 degrees, that's darn near due south for satellite work. We'll lose it, or loss of signal, at 33 degrees. Again, darn near due north. This is rocket science, but it ain't rocket science. So it's south to north. It's a wonderful south to north pass. And when it's at its maximum elevation off the horizon, it's going to be at 120 degrees, darn near due west. This is a phenomenal pass, and we just worked this over the weekend. So with that whole chart of AMSAT data, it looks like gibberish, but pick out an elevation that's high for you, more than 10, 12 degrees for handheld work, and that's how you decode all those numbers. The AMSAT data is updated all the time, and it's absolutely free to use.
Okay, so we've chosen the radio, and we programmed it per the information off your website. We've improved the antennas. We know the pass times. Let's talk about the very simple procedure that's used when you make a call with a satellite. You just don't get on there and talk a long time, do you? Because the satellite isn't going to be up there but a few minutes.
There's a couple musts in working satellites handheld. Number one, open up your squelch all the way. I mean, open up your squelch all the way. Yes, it's going to be noisy, but we're talking about a quarter of a watt signal from 500 miles away. So the satellite signal is not going to be breaking your radio's squelch like your local repeater will. Number two, we talked about this earlier, get perpendicular. If you're using a longer whip to try to receive, you need to orient it so it's perpendicular to the orbit of the satellite. I mean, let's see here. When you held your HT upright and key the mic, holding it straight up like this, transmitted signal leaving at about 90 degrees, expecting to hit a terrestrial station, a friend across town, or that hilltop repeater. But most of our amateur satellites are not land-based. Most of our amateur satellites are not land-based. I can hear the humor in the chat room. Thank you, Kathy. So you need to orient your antenna so that the 90-degree relationship is now hitting the satellites or matching the satellite's orbit. With a Yagi, of course, you'll be pointing at it. But if you're trying to monitor with a longer whip in your handheld, get perpendicular. And number three, listen, don't transmit unless you hear someone on the satellite. That sounds kind of weird. Like, wait, what if it's early in the morning? What if I want to try and work the new coming of AO27? Please, especially AO27 and the to be newly commissioned Fox 1A, please do not transmit until you hear somebody on it. You might interfere with the AO27 control operators trying to reprogram that bird. Same thing with commissioning Fox 1A. It's not going to be up and workable for us immediately, so wait until you hear someone. On the East and West Coast, there's almost always someone on the FM birds to work. But if you're fine-tuning for Doppler, you don't hear a slight dip in the background, and you don't hear anybody else, and you know you've worked SO50 before, the satellite might be off in another mode. On SO50, if it's early in the morning, there's actually a 74.4 tone. You can send it to turn it on. Yes, you become the control operator of SO50. If you know it's there, you've worked it before, but there just isn't anybody on yet, you can turn on its 10-minute timer. And the fourth thing, please know your grid square. A lot of hams work different grid squares for awards, and so know your grid square. And slide 13 will give you don't call CQ satellite, CQ satellite, CQ satellite. You phonetically, and use the internationally accepted phonetics, announce your call sign, grid square, and there's a lot of debate, and the people next week will say, don't do that, but I say handheld at the end, or demo. It takes 1/3 of 1 second of satellite time, and it just lets other operators know that there's a low power station coming in. So you would monitor, you'd know where the bird is, you monitor, wait for a break in the action, key your mic, Kilo 6, Lima Charlie Sierra, Delta Mike 1-3, handheld. And someone's going to come back to you and just exchange grid squares. And if it's a busy day, that's going to be it. You're not going to get any more conversations in. If it's late at night or overnight or during the week, you might be able to get in a sentence or two, and where exactly are you in Delta Mike 1-3 land. But start off just thinking it's going to be a really quick conversation, and demo or handheld. If you use it or not, it's up to you. Some will demand that you absolutely use no such designator, but again, it takes a half a second to say it. No one should really be upset about doing that. And again, don't just call CQ. Identify yourself and your grid square, and someone's going to come back to you.
All right. We've got.
Whoa, there's some cool sites there.
Yeah.
That's my website. And any questions? There's an email address for you. For those on shortwave, it's my call sign, Kilo 6 Lima Charlie Sierra at hamsatinfo. Ham, H-A-M. There's a little hyphen there. sat.info. Or if you go to the website, there's email contact all over the place for it. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I tell you, you have really given us a lot of good information. And what the message is that to the newcomers out there, there's probably a lot of people on here that have worked satellites before and they're pros. But the message we want to get to these people is get in here and try it. It seems a little complicated, but there are only a few pieces you need to understand. You lined those out in your talk tonight. And get on there. And if you don't succeed the first time, just keep trying, and you'll eventually fall in that notch, and things will work. I got a friend I talked to on Google Hangout. He just got his license, and he bought him a dual band HT. And he's headed about 1 week, and he's so discouraged. He's not making any contacts. People won't talk to him. And I'm telling him, hey, let's try satellite, It's not that hard. And he's wanting to work DX and things like that. And sometimes the new ham doesn't understand. You're not going to work a lot of DX with a 1 watt handy talkie. But if you talk through a satellite, you will work DX. So, for these techs out there, that's something good that they can do. Hey, Clint, now here's something else I built. And let me show you this right here. You know what this might be?
It's not 2.4 gig. What is that?
It is. It's 2.4 gig. It's a helical. It's a homemade. One of the satellites had 2.4 gig downlink on it. I don't remember which one it was. And of course they turned it on very infrequently out there. And but I wanted to try it. I had to take a little satellite down converter, and we modified it. But this antenna cost about 25 cents to build, and this is 2.4 gig. And the thing is, if you think 2.4 gig, that's the frequency your Wi-Fi works on at your home, and it doesn't go more than about 50 feet. But guess what? I made a contact through a satellite with this 500 miles away. And this antenna right here cost about, I would say, probably less than a quarter to make, and it was made out of scrap parts. So there's all kinds of things that you can do in this hobby. Clint, you might mention the distances out, the IIS. How far is the International Space Station out, and how far are these satellites out? They're not in the very same orbit.
No, and let's go back to updating your Keplerian data. Do it at least once a week. Because the ISS does get repositioned often. Gravitational pull brings it down a little bit. So if you're going to work the ISS, and I apologize. Maybe it's just my age. Maybe it's senility, Tom. I'm not sure. But I still get excited just monitoring packet from the ISS. It lets me know that my satellite tracking software is right on. It lets me know I'm programmed properly. But as the ISS streaks over at 12,500 miles an hour, 250 miles up, just monitoring its packet station is something you can do. Just open up your Squelch All the Way with your stock duck. You'll be able to hear that. The low Earth orbiting, the LEOs, are 250 to 500 miles up. So when you're starting to work them at 5 degrees elevation, they could be 700 miles away. So that's where you definitely need gain from any of those stock ducks. One of my favorite aftermarket ducks, I already showed it to you earlier, was this little Smiley 270A. It's a collapsible metal rod, which I usually do not recommend putting on a delicate SMA connector. But Tom, I hope you and Kathy just didn't have any meal, because watch this.
Oh man!
It's got a nice beefy spring in the base to protect your SMA, your delicate SMA connector. So I would not recommend. There's also this monster AL800 that extends to 20 feet or something for BNC connectors, but it just puts so much stress on your HT. Although a good friend, Alan in Texas, has more than 9,000 satellite communications with this antenna, the AL800, and his ICOM W32A, a classic dual band, true dual receive machine. So again, ultimate line of sight. When I worked the ISS, it was more than 300 miles, more than 400 miles away when I started at 3 or 4 degrees elevation. 2 watts and a tape measure beam can get you into the world of high gain. And for those who have not actually seen the ISS streak overhead, you can go to the nasa.gov site, sign up for an email list, and they'll give you a 12-hour head warning on when you'll be able to actually walk outside, either 4 in the morning or 8 or 9 at night, and actually see the reflection of the ISS streak over your house. Very, very exciting. You had a picture, Tom, that you passed out of remember the kid in the red and blue striped shirt?
Is that it there?
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is at Santa Barbara a few years ago, and I'm sorry. I need some Kleenex. This gets me misty-eyed every time I see it. The kid in the striped shirt just received his amateur license the Friday before. His very first amateur radio contact was with me working AO51 that Saturday at Santa Barbara. Oh, but it gets better, Tom. His dad and his grandfather were there. I had 3 generations working. I'm getting goosebumps. Kathy, you see these goosebumps? I had 3 generations of hams working a satellite for the first time. So it's stuff like that keeps me doing these shows. And I'll be in Wayne, New Jersey on August 10th doing my satellite show, Wayne, New Jersey, and back to Southern California to South Orange County, Mission Viejo on the 17th of August. Still doing these shows, still finding appreciative audiences who didn't know they could do so much with so little.
Yeah, and I tell you, you really meet a lot of nice people like this. And we met all the contacts I made with Colonel Wheelock, and he turned out to be a great friend of ours. He came to see us at Dayton right after that, and then he's been with us a time or two and helped co-hosted our Dayton Hamvention show. He was supposed to be with us again this year, but he had an illness in his family and couldn't make it. But it's kind of fun, making friends like astronauts. That doesn't happen every day, and hopefully he'll be back with us again next year. I want to talk just a little differences about the International Space Station and a satellite. Of course, on a satellite, you're going to be hearing hundreds and hundreds of people trying to make contacts as that thing goes over, because the orbit only lasts about 7, 8, 9 minutes, and everybody's trying to make contacts and work grid squares, like Clint mentioned. The thing about and they're always on. The thing about the International Space Station is it's not always on. It's quiet most of the time, unless the astronaut gets there and turns it on and wants to talk. Now, what I have learned is they only do that on their spare time, and they go by Universal Mean Time, or GMT time. So if you want to work the space station, I think your best times is if you look at the Universal time, and after 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, that's when these astronauts are getting off work. They have time to rest and relax, and they go back there and they make contacts. And Colonel Wheelock made thousands and thousands and thousands of contacts. Now, the problem with working the space station is you're going to hear it. If he's on there, you're going to hear it because he's going to be loud. They're running, I think, like a mobile rig in there. It's probably running, 35, 40 watts, I guess, maybe even more. And it's a lot closer than the other satellites. So you're going to hear that space station when it comes over. If you heard the audio I played earlier of the contact I made, you realized how clear it was. The problem is that thing is so wanted by so many that it's difficult to get through the pileups to make a contact. If you ever listen, I think there's probably a YouTube video that shows what Colonel Wheelock was hearing on his end. When he'd say, okay, I'm in the space station, anybody down there need a contact, about 5,000 people would call him all at the same time. And when that happens, he couldn't pick out a single call letter for anyone. So you have to be persistent, repeat your call again, don't get too greedy. But I found one of the best things in talking to Doug, one of the best things that will help you is if you'll say something like, this is W5KUB in Memphis. Well, all these calls are all on top of each other and he didn't hear anything, but he'll hear the word Memphis. And when he hears the word Memphis, most likely he's going to go back and say, okay, I heard a station in Memphis, and he'll call you and everyone else will be quiet. They're very polite. They'll be quiet. You can make that contact. So that's just a little hint that I wanted people to know about working the space station. Clint's holding up a picture of the QSL card from the IIS. There we go.
Yes, they do send it. It's one of the ultimate contacts, and you're right. You need to check each astronaut's country's schedule for what they're going to be doing on the ISS, and then see if they're going to be in the Columbia module with some free time. You can also check ariss.org, amateur radio aboard the ISS, ariss.org. They're the body that has put on more than 1,000 of those classroom wonderful presentations of speaking with the ISS as it streaks over. But you're right. UTC time, you have to accommodate for that. You got to look at each of the countries involved, satellite schedules. They're posted at NASA and the other space agencies that are involved. Back out for UTC time and see if they're in the Columbia module or not. So it's a difficult one to get. And like for Field Day 2014, they did announce ahead of time that there might be some spare time available and it might be happening, and it certainly was that Saturday morning.
Okay, well, we've just about run out of time on the segment, although let's see if there are a couple questions that came in. I did see some questions earlier. I don't know if Kathy can scroll back and find them. There were questions about, the vertical and horizontal, and I think we've already talked about there is a polarity difference, and of course, with the handheld little beams, you can actually rotate those. You can rotate the polarity until you get the loudest, clearest, best signal. So that's what you constantly do as you follow the satellite over. You'll kind of rotate that antenna for best match in polarity, and that'll definitely clear it up. So we'll take a couple questions in the chat room real quick for Clint, and then we're going to go. And let me ask Ted. Ted or David, are you guys still there?
No, we left a little while ago.
Well, I thought you might have because you've been awful quiet.
I heard you on SO50.
So hey, go ahead.
Oh, you said hey Ted. So
I was going to say, is it going to be possible to take maybe 3 or 4 phone calls tonight?
Yes, it's possible. I was going to ask a couple of questions here because we have a lot of. I guess I want to say new, very, very new amateur radio guys that come on board, and of course their start in amateur radio is with usually a what are these things called, the Beifeng or the Pofeng or the
and the other Wuxong, which is not Wuxong.
I say it that way, and my theory is this: if they come over here to the United States and they sell a radio. And nobody knows how to say it. That means you get to say whatever you want. So if it looks like Waxon, that's what I'm going to call it. Yeah. Okay, so a lot of these younger folks are going to have these radios. And I guess my question is can they expect to be able to do with those what you would with a let's say a Kenwood, a Yaesu, or any other brand radio. I guess the brand doesn't necessarily have as much to do with it, but you were saying that there were some of those radios that didn't perform well. Could they make contacts with these things on an FM satellite?
Brand does make a difference when you consider the Kenwood THD72A and what they've been able to do with it, without having descents in VHF and UHF mode like we're doing for satellites. Think of the THF6. All three of the most popular voice bands, each at full power in one little handheld. No one has duplicated that in the last 10 years. So Kenwood has some engineering prowess that the others don't have. Can you use a couple Baofangs and do this? The problem right now on the VU birds, where UHF is coming down, is a definite descents problem. It didn't surprise me for a $25 or $35 radio. There have been some tests on the Fox bird, which is UHF up, VHF down, and it's not quite as pronounced a problem with descents. So are they the ultimate? No. But we might see some more folks having success on Fox 1 coming up with those less expensive radios. They can be programmed. They are not true dual receive. There's only one VFO in most of them, and the ones that do advertise dual VFOs are the ones that have a descents problem.
I guess I was going to say, for those who are beginners, newbies, which I always try to keep in mind, because I get a lot of email on QSO that says, "You're over our heads. We just got into this. Explain this to us." Why don't you tell folks what descents is and what kind of a problem that is, or what causes it, and why it is that they may be disappointed using a handheld Chinese radio in order to try to communicate with a satellite?
When you're transmitting at even at a watt or lower power in a less expensive radio, a radio that isn't made to do that, I don't want to say dumb it down, but it's just like bleeding over into the other band, especially when you use a single antenna, even with a duplexer or a diplexer. So it's just the internal shielding and mechanics and engineering of the inexpensive radios that was never made to do that. The Kenwood THD72A does it really, really well. The THF6 I mentioned, it's dual receive, but not true full duplex. When you key the mic, you don't hear anything on the subband. But that THD72, if you wanted to buy one radio to work the FM birds, the THD72 would be it. And then next week you're going to learn more about the sideband birds, FO29, AO7, and a couple of the sideband, and AO73. That the THF6 will receive really nicely in sideband mode. So this crop of incoming radios, and just a personal opinion, if you're going to buy a Wouxun, the WOUXUN, the only place on the planet I would buy one from would be PowerWorks in California, because I know them. I know that they're hams. They own it. You call, you talk to a ham, and they've got the clout with PowerWorks to make firmware and cosmetic changes that some other dealers don't have. A lot of dealers are interested in selling boxes only, and thousands of boxes only. And Amazon return policy, they can throw a $25 radio away, not care about it. But I believe HRO is carrying the Wouxun brand, and that PowerWorks is the only people I'd buy a Wouxun from. Personal opinion, I'm not associated. I worked for HRO in 2004 to 2006, but I have nothing to do with PowerWorks. But if you want to buy a Wouxun inexpensive sub $100 dual band radio, that's who I'd look at first.
One of the
I don't know.
I'm sorry, one of the things I'll say about some of those Chinese radios, they are very, very difficult to program and operate and change frequencies. But I don't want our listeners and our viewers out there to get discouraged if that's what they've got, because they will make satellite contacts with those radios.
Well, I was going to say, to me, any of them are confusing. Now, the THF6, I have one of those, and I've often said that it takes probably some tutoring and maybe a couple of years of college to learn how to program that radio. On the other hand, my son Matt has one, and he does anything on it that he can do it. I mean, instantly. And then there was a blind fellow here in Lebanon that had one, and he could program circles on the thing in a matter of seconds, you know. But I will say this now. I'm a big believer in the RT systems software, and also RF. What is it? RFinder. I'm trying to think of the name of the website, the app, and all that. And with that, you can program a Beifeng or a Waxon in about a minute and a half, with every split and every PL tone you can think of, you know. So, and that really makes it simple. However, I will say this: on the Chinese radios, you're not going to get all the display features that you would on some of the other rigs. In other words, it's not going to tell you everything you want to know when you're clicking to a channel. It's not going to tell you that machine is wherever it is and the split is this. So I see that hand.
Tom, I do have some. Oh, excuse me, sir. I've got some cheat sheets for you on my K6LCS.com. I digested that 120-page THF6 manual down to one page for you. It's available on the docs page. Same thing with the FT60, 84-page manual, and what you need to know: how to go to VFO mode, enter the frequency, enter the offset, enter the tone. It isn't on pages 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's on page 1, 17, 28, 29, and 73. So I just digested about 30 different handheld and mobile rigs manuals, and I made them into one-page cheat sheets for folks, and those are over at K6LCS.com on the docs page. They're single-page PDFs, a bunch of HTs, and a bunch of mobile rigs. And the only thing I don't like about the THF6 is the battery level indicator. You have to go function battery to find out what the battery level is. It doesn't give you, when you turn it on, it doesn't let you know exactly what your battery status is. But other than that, boy, for Southern California, that's the ultimate tri-band rig, and why no one else has been able to duplicate that, I'm not sure. Then when Kenwood came out with that D72A, Kenwood's got some great engineers working for him.
Well, I had a different battery indicator. Mine kind of went like that, and then it just quit working. Go ahead, Ted.
I was going to ask about radios. A long time ago, I bought a Yaesu, and I'm trying to think what the model number was. Something says it's in the closet there, David. But anyways, it's maybe it's a 7100. I'm thinking. I'm not sure. But anyways, it did the transmit received simultaneously for satellite work. Never used it for that. But then this last Christmas, I bought 3 more radios. I got one for David, one for Matt, and one for Holly. All of those are supposed to do the true duplex simultaneous transmit receive. Now, I guess I would ask for folks who are, and that's what I was looking for, but I didn't know exactly how to go about it. I was going to say, for those that are entry level, why don't you explain a little bit the difference between a stock radio and one that does have the full duplex, so that the folks just trying to get into this will understand the reason why that is.
The reason you want to work true full duplex, where you can actually monitor the satellite's downlink as you key your mic, twofold. One, to make sure you're making it properly, and second, to make sure you're not accidentally stepping on another's conversation. So that's the reason. But Tom knows, in these demonstrations I give, I'm using a non-true full duplex radio and just trying to be cordial and wait for a break in the action, and then keying the mic. Some of the new radios that are coming out, that Puxing 973 and a couple of the other models, are indeed crossband repeater units. The big complaint with them is, well, they make squeals and stuff. Well, that's because somebody's trying to test crossband repeat when the radio is on their desk and the radio they're transmitting with is 3 feet away. They do work crossband repeat mode fairly well when you get them further apart. Put it out in the parking lot, put it up on top of the building or something. But the inexpensive rigs with the Desense problems that claim that they're true full duplex just aren't working well. Like you have your cavities and your equipment and your repeaters, they just are not working well in UHF down, VHF up mode. But again, don't throw them away. If it is a true duplex radio, it might work better on the VHF down and UHF up of the upcoming Fox 1A project from AMSAT North America. So watch for that being launched in hopefully in September from Vandenberg.
Yeah. Hey, Ted, I'm going to go ahead and put the phone number up if you don't mind, and maybe we can have 2 or 3 people call us and talk to us about their exciting IIS or satellite, their first satellite contact they made. We're going to so let me see if I can get the number on here. That should be it right. That should be it right there. Now I got the number up. So, hey guys, give us a call, and we'll put you on the show here. And also, I'm not meaning to neglect questions on the chat room. One question earlier was about circular polarization. I don't think that's a big deal right now in working the satellites or the space station, but I mean, I guess with circular polarization, you might not have to worry too much about horizontal or vertical polarity. What do you think?
Tom, on the FM birds, engineers can show me that it is a phenomenon that does exist. I've only experienced it on SO50 as I lose it, but maybe it's just because there's so much gain in the simple antennas that we're using that I just don't see it. But on every demonstration, on every pass, I will subtly turn my arrow 90 degrees or my tape measure beam 90 degrees just to see if I can discern an increase or decrease in received sensitivity. And in the beginning of the pass, in the middle of the pass, please don't worry about circular polarization on the FM voice birds. Now, the engineers next week from AMSAT will say I'm absolutely nuts and give you my psychiatrist's phone number. But working it handheld, please don't worry. Go ahead and do it yourself. Get your antenna out and try the 90-degree rotation as you work it. But I've only experienced the phenomenon really when it's when I start losing the bird, when it gets down below 10 degrees on loss of signal.
Yeah, one of the chat room questions from Robbie, KI4TTZ, says, don't the satellites spin? They tumble out there, don't they?
Tom, it's another question that I get every once in a while. Yes, they're tumbling, but then maybe again it's because I'm using that tape measure beam with all that gain, or that Arrow satellite antenna with all that gain. I cannot sense for the life of me any degradation of signal because the bird is tumbling. It's the same type of an email I get once every 10 or 12 days if someone says there's nobody on SO50, and I kind of think, well, you just need to move because there's always somebody on SO50 on the east and west coasts. So something else might be wrong. The time of day is wrong in your satellite program, or your grid square is incorrect. But the tumbling of the birds is something, again, some engineers will say, yes, it's there. But when you use a higher gain antenna like we are, it just is not a problem. I'll get in trouble for saying that. I'll get in trouble. I got email already.
Do you? Someone said, could one of the astronauts work through a satellite back down to the ground? I think that would surely be possible. I mean, satellites have certain footprints and so forth as they go over, but I mean, if you had a line of sight to that satellite, and particularly running some power up there, he might be able to talk through a satellite back down. But I don't think you're ever going to see that happen.
Just this week, a couple folks tried to, with Packet, piggyback from the ISS to another bird. Okay. Don't know if it's successful or not, but that's just beyond my conception of what to do. It's just so fascinating. You might hear some talk from it from your AMSAT North America reps in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and another thing about the IIS, KD4NOQ said the ISS is always available on Packet. I don't really work Packet myself, but when they get in there and they want to make voice contacts, they have to change the frequency, I believe, and put it on a different frequency to make those voice contacts. Now, in the past years, the IIS has the capability of being a repeater, just like a satellite. But typically, the astronauts just did not turn it on repeat. Either they were too busy or didn't care to, and nobody really pushed it because that's not their primary job of ham radio up there. So it was always just great to be able to hear them and talk to them.
It was a programming problem, and last year we did have 2 astronauts who were trained in programming that the TMD Kenwood mobile radio, but it didn't get done. So the FM repeater has been down for years. And back to the question from the chat room, packet is not always on. If there's a mission heading towards it, connected to it sometimes, like it is right now, or a mission leaving the ISS, they will turn packet on. Something about electric sparks and antennas and fires and explosions and things. So packet is usually on if there's not a mission heading towards it, like the cargo mission we just had from Russia. Thank goodness that worked last week. Or if something is leaving. But again, all boils down to, again, searching each the representative country's space program websites to see what the astronauts' individual schedules are, seeing if they have any free time, seeing if they're in the Columbia module. And for ISS contacts in the United States, check ariss.org, aris.org, for possible planned time for us to talk to them on FM VHF.
Okay, well let's don't forget our shortwave listeners out there. I want to send them the phone number out there, 615-813-0173. So if you're a shortwave listener out there, we'd like to hear from you too. Call in, and Ted will grab the phone there. We'll put you on the air. Tell us what you think about the show tonight, and if you're interested in working satellites, or if you even knew that was part of ham radio. So the number is 615-813-0173. And hams, guys, amateur radio operators, call in too. I don't know if Ted's got any calls there or not. Ted, is your phone rung any tonight?
Nothing so far.
Yeah, your phone line may not be hooked up.
We have bored them.
The phone lines are connected and ready to roll. So.
All right. Well, maybe somebody from Australia or somewhere will call in. Come on, guys. 615-813-0173. We want to make this show exciting out here, and we want to, we want to make it different. We want to start hearing from you. Give us a call and let us know what's going on. Let's see what's else in the chat room here. Clint,
is there an open line for Skype people?
No, we haven't advanced that far yet.
All right.
Hey, Clint, when's the last time you were working any of the birds?
What time is it?
Have you been on today?
Yeah, I monitored, not decoding it, but I monitored AO73. That's AMSAT UK's FunCube 1, just to see if it was on or not and just receiving it. I wasn't decoding its telemetry.
Uh-huh.
And hey, I'm going to start listening to AO27 again. I know it's not up yet in FM voice mode, but please program that back in your machines. It might come back.
We
got a call. Line 17. We got a call.
Let's do it.
Let's see here. Something didn't work right. Let me see here.
It's a home mortgage solicitation.
Okay, there you go. Hello. Are you there?
Hello?
Hello, caller?
Yeah.
And who are we speaking to here?
My name is Dennis, W0JP.
And where are you located?
I'm located in Bonner Springs, Kansas.
All right, very good. Well, have you got a question for Cliff tonight?
I don't know if I have any specific questions. I just started doing the satellite stuff and really having a blast. Use a 92A ICOM handheld, not duplex, but still was able to make contacts and just getting a little better at it. I am interested more in the new FM birds that are coming out, and maybe just I think you talked a little bit about them. I don't know how many are coming, and talking about higher orbits and things, so maybe you could just kind of elaborate on that just a bit.
W0JC, good evening. Sir, what antenna are you using with your 92? That's a great rig, by the way, but what antenna are you using as you play with the FM satellites?
I'm using the Arrow 2.
Way to shoot. You're going to be excited with the Fox project, or there are several of them, but the Fox 1A coming up hopefully in September or October. It's going to have more of an elliptical orbit, a little longer passes for us, and your antenna and your rig, you're going to have a blast with it. But you're right. Right now, the only easy to work, what I call easy to work, FM bird is the Saudi bird, SO50. And I still get a kick out of monitoring the ISS as it flies over. Just pack it, just to make sure that my satellite tracking software is correct and show it off to friends. So watch for that. Turkey is going to possibly launch something for us in 2016. AMSAT North America has a series of Fox birds. So please keep watching QRZ.com and eham.net. And, of course, my website. And we'll get more information to you out on the easier to work FM birds. But, boy, I'm sure glad you're enjoying the hobby. How long have you been a ham, W0JC?
The call here is W0 Juliet Papa, and I've been a ham since 1975. So,
Whoa!
Yeah.
Whoa! Extraordinary. Glad. And do the slow scan TV next time one of those projects are announced with your radio. What kind of, do you have a smartphone? Do you have an Android or a iOS smartphone by any chance?
Yeah, I do, and I actually done a little slow scan reception, and I was hoping to catch the ISS that last time, but wasn't able to do that pass when it went over. So looking forward to some of that. I think also looking at the fun cubes and stuff. I guess takes a little bit better radio, and sounds like you almost have to have a computer hooked up to compensate for the Doppler and stuff. And that's a facet I haven't done yet. And then as far as an antenna, whether you can just do a omnidirectional or whether you've really got to have a Yagi of some type to pick up and transmit it to them. So if you have any information on that, I'd love to hear about it.
Omnis are, by definition, not a lot of gain. I mean, I've got a beautiful M-squared Omni with the ground plane kit, spent $300 for it. I take it to ham shows. I put it on a rotator. I call it my souffle antenna. It's not really good for working the birds because there's no gain. You get much better results with a $15 tape measure beam than I do with a $300 M square. I don't want to trash M squared because it's a wonderful unit. But again, we're talking 250 milliwatts to 400 milliwatts from 500 miles away. And if it's an Omni antenna, it almost demands a preamp. People are doing it, but where I'm coming from, it's keep it simple. Keep it simple means I can look at my satellite tracker, know that SO50 is going to fly over from south to north in 10 minutes from now, walk outside with my aero antenna and radio and work it. No preamp, no altimeter, no compass. It's either north to south or south to north pass, and just go out and work it. So Omni antennas, there's some gorgeous ones out there, but boy, for satellite work, for these low power FM birds, just not efficient as a handheld beam or a Yagi. Now, if you want to tilt your vertical about 20 degrees off the horizon, people are successfully working FM birds by just having it, getting close to being perpendicular to the orbit of the satellite. But there's when you can do it with a watt or two on your handheld and a $15 antenna. I hear people say, 100 watts and vertical. It just drives me nuts because you can do it with so much less equipment. I don't know if that, did that answer your question, sir, or not?
Yeah, pretty good. I think, it's just like everything else in the hobby. When you get into a facet, it's like as you want to get in deeper, and it seems like the fun cubes are a little bit more complicated and take a little bit more investment. And like you said, the FM birds are fun, but now I'm kind of looking at going to that next step and, making the financial commitment and stuff. So that's just kind of getting more information as I go here. So I do appreciate everything.
A lot of info for you at amsat.org, amsat.org, and also some excellent tutorials at amsat-uk.org. So North America and Great Britain's AMSAT organizations have equipment recommendations, antenna recommendations, and how to get into the sideband birds. and download that telemetry and decode it for all. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is as you work the birds, there's a site. It's called the Live Oscar Status page, and it's where you can actually put your own call sign in, your own grid square. Well, you're not necessarily grid square, but your own call sign, time of day, and let the rest of the hams know whether or not you heard or not heard a bird when you expected it. It helps everybody. It helps fellow hams to know if that ISS packet is on. It helps control operators, let them know if it's being heard or not. And I forgot the website. There's a link of it for it, of course, on my website. But it's DCARR.something. But it's the Live Oscar Status page. So please use that, even if you don't hear something that you expected. That's valuable information for fellow hams and the control operators.
All right, Clint, let me get our number out again real quick. 615-813-0173. 615-813-0173. And Ted is mentioning that he's getting some emails from some of the listeners out there. And, of course, you've got all different levels of listeners out there. Probably some are understanding what we're talking about. And, of course, there's some that probably don't understand some of the terminology that we're using here tonight. But it's fun. It's really fun. There was a question in the chat room. Let's see. The M-square antennas. They're M-square antennas that look like an egg beater. What is that?
That's exactly it. Those are egg beaters. They're more of an omnidirectional, where your reception and transmission is not a direct signal, but it's spread out through that entire 360-degree. And when you add the ground plane kit, it improves the horizon-to-horizon performance. But working the birds, it's almost mandatory additional cost of a preamp to get those to work nicely for you.
Yeah.
M-squared has some wonderful Yagis and wonderful satellite antennas. The egg beaters for general reception, I just don't use them for satellites because I would know I'd have to go out and get a preamp to be able to receive.
Well, again, they're asking the best time to hear the IIS. And again, of course, Doug told me they do it in their spare time, their off time. Those guys have a job just like us, and they work 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and then they're off, the evening, and that's their spare time to do what they want to do. And they go by UTC, or Universal Time. So 6 o'clock Universal Time, 6 p.m. or 1800. Would be about noon my time in the central time zone. So I was always able to start listening. I knew afternoon if they were going to be on, that's when they would be on. Another thing you can do on the space station, it's not on all the time, especially during the day. And what you can do, look on Clint's site or some other sites and get a schedule. They do a lot of school contacts, and those contacts are scheduled. They're going to be on there. And you will hear that contact if you listen in. So it's pretty much guaranteed. If you check the time and there's a school contact and it's within, you're part of the country, or you're within sight of the IIS, that you'll be able to hear that. Another thing for those interested in the IIS that don't want to work it by radio, look at the data that tells when it comes over and from what direction and what elevation what elevation, and you'll be able to see on many nights, you'll be able to see the IIS go over. It'll look like a bright star, and you'll see it go over. It'll take probably, 7, 8, 9 minutes, but it's a lot of fun to watch.
Kathy, what's happening in the chat room?
Pick the mic up.
Most of the questions.
Yeah. Okay, guy. JERTC says, I'm building a 6-element 2-meter beam with a 9.31 dB gain based on DK7 ZB. Is this plenty of antenna gain for the 2-meter side? Hey, Yeah, it's plenty. You saw this. I mean, hey, this is not a 9 element right here. It's this thing right here. This is the tape measure. This will do it right here. That's all you need right there.
Yes, 9 dB gain. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
All right, Ted. Anything else going on your end here? Questions or comments?
No, not on my end. I was I was just waiting to see if our phone line was going to ring one more time. 615-813-0173. And I might want to say this. 615 is the area code for Nashville, Tennessee. 813 is a very popular grounded grid tube for amplifiers and ham radio. So this is a good way to remember this. Remember, ham radio is the #1 hobby as far as we're concerned, and 73 is the thing we say at the end of a QSO. So 615-813-0173. If you're listening and you want to call in, be sure and do that, because we'll be wrapping up soon. You'll miss your opportunity to talk to Clint. So no, I have no more questions. Matter of fact, I think I understand everything now.
Well, hey, I'm up to speed. I'm up to speed here, and hey, it's been a pretty good night. Things have worked pretty good for us, Ted. Your stuff's worked, my stuff's worked. Hey, I like our new studio. Our new studio we have here. I'd like to hear. It looks
wonderful.
I'd like to hear some comments from our viewers, how they like our new studio. If you don't like it, we can change it pretty easy. It only cost us $1 million to build.
I got an email, Tom. How far can you talk? Depending on the footprint of that satellite, I've talked 2,500 miles before between here and Georgia. It was only a 4-degree elevation pass for that handheld operator. It was a little bit higher for me. Can I guarantee I'll do that every time? No. But upwards of 2,000 miles. And with this elliptical orbit of the Fox 1A project coming up, we're gonna have possibility of the East Coast talking to Europe via Fox 1A from AMSAT North America. Very, very exciting stuff coming in the next couple months.
Okay, well, unless another call comes in the next 30 seconds, Clint, we're going to go ahead and we'll probably end this segment here. It's been a good segment tonight. We had a lot of fun to learn about satellites. Hopefully, it will place interest with a lot of the new people and get them to try it. And I think once they try it, they'll get hooked on it. And guys, next week we're going to continue our satellite discussion. Next week we will have AMSAT here. We will have we'll have Jerry N0JY, that's AMSAT's Vice President of Engineering, and we're going to have Drew KO4NA. He's the Vice President of AMSAT Operations. So, and we're going to be talking about the engineering and then the history of AMSAT. We're going to be talking about the Fox 1C new satellite that's going up very soon. I'm looking forward to that. I'll have to get my satellite stuff back out and dust it off and start making some more contacts. So let's see if there's any other last questions here. An old timer. Here's an old timer. KF4HR. He's an old time satellite guy. He worked the AO60s, 7s, 8s, 10s, and so forth. I'm curious why AMSAT isn't focusing on sideband, linear transponder, birds, so many people can use the birds at the same time. Well, I guess we'll get that answer from them next week.
And it's a lot of economics too. Please think of including AMSAT North America in your will, so we can get some more transponder birds up there. It's a lot less money to put a CubeSat up, a little 6x6 by 6 inch CubeSat, than it is to get a linear transponder up. So, hey, talk to your attorney, put AMSAT North America in your will. The only people that get hurt are your grandkids.
All right. Well, Clint, thank you very much for coming on with us tonight. We really enjoyed it. It was a good show, I think, and it looks like we had a lot of interest in here tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And we have a part of our show, usually at the end of our show. Oh, I want to talk about that, Mike, in just a minute. We usually have a part at the end of our show where we use Google Hangout. And if you've got a microphone and a camera, you can click on this link we're sending out. And Kathy, can you send that link out? And if you click on that link, we will add you into the webcast, and you will be able to get on the webcast with us. And people out there will see your face, and they'll hear you. You'll be on there just like us, so you can be a movie star too. 73, Clint. Let's talk real quick about the mic. Tell us about the mic. Let me see if I can figure out how to get you back on here. There we go. Let's talk about.
It's not worth it. It's not
talk
worth
about
it.
the mic.
Thank you. This is the new Heil PR999. It's a prop. It's a prop.
Oh, okay.
Welcome to my world, Tom.
After I saw it close up there, I was thinking it's got to be. It's not a real mic. Okay, but when you first came on tonight, I thought it was a real mic.
Welcome to my world.
All right.
7-3. Good night.
All right. 73 to you. Okay. Hey, Ted, any last comments from you there, or David? We got to wake David up. He's kind of drifting off back there.
Not really, other than to say, to invite folks to tune in on Saturday afternoons on 9475 for the QSO show, and then again at night on 5085 at 7 p.m. on Sunday nights. So it's Sunday nights for the nighttime version on 5085, and on Saturdays at 1 p.m. Central Daylight Time on 9475. And then also just want to remember and remind all the folks that coming up July the 20th, Art Bell returns to the air on WTWW on shortwave weeknights on 5085. So
I'm looking forward.
Just kind of a little reminder there. So we're hoping everything will go okay, providing like David and I don't get abducted, or Tom doesn't get abducted or something before then.
Well, that could happen. I actually thought he was trying to enter the premises last week. Yeah.
Well, no, but it could have been something else trying to get in now.
Well, whatever it was, it did some damage last week, that's for sure. But, hey, it worked this week. The Internet's an amazing thing, isn't it? Can you just imagine? Ted, when we were growing up, we didn't have internet, man. What did we have to play with out there? Nothing.
Dirt.
I don't know. I was just commenting today that I used to, friends of mine would come over, we'd spend the night, we'd listen to the radio all night long, we'd have a ham rig turned in and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. To me, I think that the younger people today, and I say younger people, kids are just, I think they're overloaded. I think they got too many things and they don't really enjoy. I mean, we really enjoyed just listening to an AM transistor radio when I was a kid. I remember that,
Yeah.
That was fun. You put it under your pillow at night. And of course, ham radio was just incredible as a kid, So I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, all this stuff we've got, if it's really brought something to the table of some significance, to us in terms of happiness and satisfaction and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, enough of it.
I tell you, Kid, I think it has improved our lives some. It's a double-edged sword. It's improved our lives some because there's so many good things that come out of it. I mean, last week when I came over to your studio, man, put in the GPS, and the GPS just takes me right to your house. Never been before. I didn't even have to worry about directions. On my Droid phone here, I've got a weather radar app that the pilots use, and you can just it pinpoints me and it shows the radar. And oh man, I mean, we didn't have that kind of stuff before, and technology has really changed. I mean, even for us ham radio operators, back when I started, we didn't have sideband. I remember when sideband came out, and people were really mad at the sideband. They called them slop buckets. And they told them, get above, and I don't remember the frequency, get above 3,800 where you belong, and now they're everywhere, right?
Not being the spoil sport here, but my question is this. Why is it, though, that young people and kids, and even us adults, why are we not happier today than we used to be? That's the question I've got.
Yeah. Wow. Well, all right. Well, tonight, David, thank you very much for making everything work back there. And, guys, I'm going to go ahead and log into Hangout on this link I sent out and see if anybody's there. And if they are, we'll just throw their video and stuff up, and we'll stay on here for a few more minutes. Ted, thank you very much.
73. Clint, thanks much for being with us tonight, and look forward to meeting up with you again sometime.
I'll see you on SO50. Working SO50 this week.
All right, very good. Well, guys, 73, we'll see you later. I'm going to turn you off now, okay? Thanks, Ted. Thanks, David. And thank you, Clint. Okay, let's just see. Let me get into Hangout. Let's see if anybody's there. It may be no one's there tonight. It's not going to hurt my feelings, but someone may be there. I really like our new studio, guys. I really love it. I need to do some adjustments on our desk right here. It's not quite where I want it.